Good morning, everybody. So, today we are starting the second class. So, in the first class, we talked about how energy has intertwined in our day to day life affairs. We talked about some of the basic requirements where energy plays a critical role. We talked about the case study of ammonia production, and then we concluded the class with the fact that India is a oil dependent economy where it is continuously importing oil in order to run most of its industrial functioning and all other automobile industry, transportation industry and different kind of production unit. So, today what we will talk about in the lecture 2 is what really is this oil economy and what is the genesis when people realize that we really have to think beyond the oil. So, if we look back, if we really read through the history of energy dynamics, we will realize fairly early in around 1950s, 1940s and 1950s, it was realized in the United States that oil or any other fossil fuel, as a matter of fact, will not be there forever. A time will come when they will be sufficiently depleted from the floor of earth, and we really need to think well in advance how we will get around the oil deficit situation. What will be the technologies which will circumvent that situation? So, a mitigation effort has to be initiated at least 30, 40, 50 years ahead of time before the crisis really emerges out. So, just have a look in this lecture. First of all, we will talk about that how these reports were coming, and there are several contradictory reports over a period of time, and today we will kind of summarize in the first part of this lecture that what were those initial reports which are kind of landmark report today, and where we really stand and where in a specific India stands retrospective based on those US reports and the current report of Indian energy sector. Okay, so let us start the lecture 2, which is our lecture 2, which is the first part. We will talk about the oil economy of the world. So, as I was telling you that there are several reports which are coming, and the very first report which came was called Hubert peak theory. What is the Hubert peak theory? Okay. Hubert peak theory, so there was a scientist, a gentleman called Hubert, who proposed in 1956, who first proposed in the year 1956 that it is basically a paper he presented in the meeting of the American Petroleum Institute when he was American Petroleum Institute, where he stated that oil production in the United States will peak between 1965 and 1970. So, this was what oil production peak. So, this was the very first report and kind of a historical report which was given by Hubert, stating that possibly this is where mankind will see that there will be shrinkage in the oil fields unless otherwise new oil resources are found across the globe, whether under the sea, that is why you see there are a lot of undersea drilling taking place all over the world, or any other places in the world where there is sufficient oil and which is easily pulled out from the base of earth and which could be easily transported. Okay. So, this was the very first early historical report, but interestingly, though Hubert predicted that it will be around 1965 and 1970, that really did not happen. Oil production did not peak, but that does not mean that Hubert was wrong. Followed by this, there were several back and forth reports which came, but in between 2005 and 2007, United States Department of Agriculture came out with another report which is also called the Hersch Report, and we will narrate it in the next slide where we will talk about. So, this is between 2000, so it is kind of little a, like it is between 2005 and 2007, and the source is US Department of Energy, and this is also called Hersch Report, which was published during this time, HIRSCH, Hersch Report. Okay. So, the Hersch Report highlights on these following points. So, point 1, it says these are the key points. The first key point is world oil peaking is going to happen. So, this is true, someday or other is going to happen, it is just the matter of when it is going to happen. The second critical point, so this is important. So, this phenomena of oil peaking, which is the maximum production, could cost economies dearly. It will have a direct impact on the economy of any country. So, because we are oil dependent economy. Next, the third point which Hersch Report highlighted is, it is an unique challenge. This situation poses an unique challenge to mankind, a challenge in modern times since industrial revolution man has not faced. The fourth interesting point in this, that it is a real problem, is the liquid fuel for transportation. So, where it is going to hit the most is the transportation sector, because this is one sector which is the lifeline, will be for all our economic development. And that you can always see, that if you walk through or move through the highways, you will always see that it is the trucks which are carrying all the goods from one place to another. Then what they say, in order to mitigate this problem, mitigation efforts will run for decades before we re-establish oil independent economy, or I would say an economy where you are not fully relying on oil. Oil may be a very small fragment, there will be other sources which will be used to derive the energy for it. So, this report further continues, as we will come to the next slide. So, one second, let me check. Okay. So, the sixth point of the report was, both supply and demand will require attention. So, So, we really have to see that what is the real supply and demand, because as of now, because of the oil economy, we are not really clear what is the real supply and demand. But with the change of the landscape, we really have to be careful and recalibrate. So, there will be a lot of recalibration which will be needed, and this recalibration has to come at multiple level, at the level of the nation, at the level of small townships, at the level of household level, where all we are starting or utilizing this different kind of supplies, where we needed the supply and what are the demands for such supply. Okay. So, coming back to the next point into it, what we will be talking about is, so once the both supply and demands require attention. So, the next one is it is a matter of risk management. So, this is a classic situation where we really have to think that this is a huge risk and we have to develop strategies for managing these risks which is on our way. Next important part, for such kind of things you need very importantly government intervention. Without government intervention, the whole area of mitigating the oil crisis cannot be tackled. This is a very Herculean task. The next point, what Hersch report very clearly says is that economic upheaval is not inevitable. And the last point, we need most importantly more informations about our current energy demands and use. Or supply. So, overall Hersch report or the DOE report between 2005 and 2007 highlighted it very clearly that it is high time that mitigation efforts have to be initiated. Because if you think of it, so say for example, currently we are in 2017, we are totally dependent on oil economy, and I say see within next 15 years of the total amount of oil what we are getting in India will go down to half. Just try to imagine the situation. If such a situation occurs, it is going to affect our economy big time, because the trucks, the trains, which are the lifeline of this nation, which are carrying goods from one corner of the nation to the other corner of the nation, feeding our soldiers, feeding our civilians all over the nation, will go down to half. And that is something which we can't afford. It may lead to a catastrophe. So, if we do not wish that catastrophe to hit us, then we probably have to think much earlier, and this could even lead to something called a Malthusian catastrophe if we really do not want it. So, if we look at it, if we kind of plot it, the next slide, I will just do a plotting for you guys just to give you an idea. So, say for example, today is, say for example, I am sitting in 2017. Okay. Now, this is where I have the reports with me. The reports came in 2000, say 2005, even 10 years before 2007. Okay. This is where the US DOE report clearly tells that the mitigation efforts have to be started. So, and I know, say for example 2030 or say 2040, where we are seeing the whole oil thing, oil peak is going to happen just for the. So, then it is high time that I start investing on ways and means today on other energy sources. And if I do not do that now, if the government does not invest money on other energy sources today, then what we are looking at is, at this stage if we reach, then we are looking for a catastrophe. And this does not need further reiteration that if we fail to run our transportation business in any place in the world, if we can't fly our planes, if we can't run our trucks, we are in serious problem. So, now in the light of this, when I talked about the other energy sources in my slide out here, where India stands. So, now this was the very beginning, brief giving you the outline of the oil economy of the world, and India is, it is just like a spider net. So, say for example, if you imagine a spider net out here, say for example oil producers, oil consumers, if there is a shaking in the oil producing nations, there will be a shake in the economy of the oil consuming nations. So, it is a worldwide web. So, you cannot run away from it, we have to accept the fact it is time we get ourselves educated about other sources of energy, and one of the very social purpose of this course is to educate our youth about what are the possibilities India has, where India can make a big change, a big difference, which we could be one of the leaders in this area. Where? So, let us evaluate where India stands. So, you remember in the last class we talked about India today is a oil dependent economy. It is importing oil from Venezuela, it is importing oil from Saudi Arabia, it is importing oil for Iraq, Iran, whatever. It is importing natural gas and so on and so forth. But let us see what India has. So, let us again redraw the graph and reposition ourselves, and then from there we will slowly start moving towards the core of it, the bioenergy. Okay. So, let us move on to the next slide. So, in the next slide what we talk about. So, you remember in the last class I told you, so assume that this box represents India, and at this point what India is doing, it is importing oil, and in that process we are spending a lot of our foreign exchange. We talked about that. Okay. And so, basically we are currently, we can call ourselves, this is present. Okay. So, this is in the present time, this is 2017 we are talking about fossil fuel dependent economy or fossil fuel based economy. Of course, India is producing, apart from it, it is also producing significant amount of coal, natural gas and all other things. Okay. So, this is where we are today. So, evaluate the situation now where we wanted to go. Now, if this is where we are standing today, so where do we want? The first thing what we wanted to do, this foreign exchange spending, if we wanted to reduce this, that is our goal, because if we reduce this, then we should be able to invest this or funnel this money for doing more and more research into the area of renewable energy. Now, let us see what India can offer. and what India has, as a matter of fact, which could be very helpful. Now, these are the resources India is having. We are the rich diversity of biomass, which is the direct source of the crux of this course called bioenergy, one area. We are diversity rich, then we have plenty of sunlight. The country has no dearth of sunlight. So, we are a very healthy photovoltaic nation. We have solar cells, PV here stands for photovoltaics. We have a huge sea line which gives us the tidal energy. We have waves. If you see the Bay of Bengal on one side, Indian Ocean in the bottom and Arabian Sea, you could harness them, harness energy from this movements. Then we have plenty of wind, which could be running the windmills. Those of you who have visited the Gujarat coastline all the way along the Somnath, all the way to up, if you go to Dwarka, you will see a lot of windmills located in that region. So, this is for the electricity. Then we have the crisscross network of rivers, which is the hydropower, and we have the geothermal sources. So, if we could integrate all this, if we have a national program today which ensures that all these different resources what India is having, starting from biomass to tidal to solar to wind to geothermal, then we can, and if we put all our resources, all our research, all our investment and all our a huge chunk of our youth dedicate their life in terms of the research and getting a feel of the technology in these areas like the biomass, the sunlight, tidal, wave, winds, then we definitely can reduce this foreign exchange, and slowly what will happen is our import percentage of oil in years to come is going to go down, and automatically if the import goes down, automatically our foreign exchange expenditure is also going to go down in spending at, and that foreign exchange which is not being used could be funneled for more and more research into this area, more and more research and teaching into this whole domain of renewable energies. So, this is where, if this is what we talked about, non-renewable energy India today, where we are heading is, or where it should head is, a world of renewable energy. And in this sector, there is a huge room for different form of innovations which is waiting. So, this is where research and innovation is needed. Now, out of this whole thing, our concern for this course is the easiest of all of them, which is very abundant in the nation, is the first point what I mentioned in the slide. If you go back, to the slide is this part. This is what we will be dealing with, and partly we will talk about some of these part where the plant dies and all these things will come very handy to us. Okay. And so, this is where we will be concentrating, but before we get into this, let us move on to the next slide where we will be talking about what are the overall use of energy if you look at it. So, the overall use of energy is in 4 different areas. One is the commercial, which we talk about all sorts of aviation, transportation and all those kind of things. The second is the industrial, this is all the manufacturing industries. Then we have the residential requirements, and then fourthly we have exclusively on different kind of transportation. Okay. So, in every country 20 to 30% each of these vary from country to country, depending on which country you are, depending on the per capita energy consumption. As I mentioned in the previous class, energy consumption. So, the overall energy use of any nation is dictated by these 4 slots. There is a commercial use or transportation or industrial use or residential use, how much you are using. So, if we have to create a newer set of grids of renewable energy, then another interesting thing what possibly we needed to develop is we have to utilize the existing grids what we are having for the current sources of energy, and we have to integrate these renewable energy sources on those existing grids to transport energy from one place to another or transport power from one place to another. Okay. So, today let us summarize what we have talked about. So, today we talked about, first of all, we talked about historically the oil landscape of the world, how from since 1950s till this day, how the different predictions have shaped the way the governments of different nations have acted towards mitigating what is called as the oil peaking. So, there will be a time when there will be maximum, and after that the oil production is going to fall down since that time. Then we talked about where India stands and what are the different energy forms which are very easily available to us and which could be utilized for or which could be channelized using technologies to mitigate the problem of the declining oil production across the world. So, and lastly we talked about the 4 different areas, namely the commercial, industrial and the residential and transportation, where energy is being consumed to the maximum level. So, with this today we will conclude the second lecture. In the third lecture we will move on to describe the different units which are used for measuring energy, and then we will talk about the domain of bioenergy per se. With these first two lectures where you get an overall idea about how energy, in your first lecture we talked about how energy rules our life, and in the second lecture we talked about how the oil economy is influencing, and then how the oil economy is slowly shifting to reach its maturity, and after that there will be further decline only, it will be aging industry then, and how from that point onward different sources of energy where bioenergy will play a very critical role will take over from there, and where India can make a whole range of difference, because if you look at it, again reiterating this fact that if we look at India's situation, all these things, whether we talk about the biomass which is abundant, sunlight, tidal again abundant, wave it is abundant, wind it is abundant, hydropower it is abundant, geothermal it is abundant, all these added together we could make a enormous difference in the energy landscape of the world. So, okay, with this I will close in the second lecture. In the third lecture we will move on to the units of expressing energy, and we will move into the real domain of bioenergy. Thank you.